Boom.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man J Kev here with Leif Taylor. One more agains on our having our conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, happiness, everything in between. Tonight, we're just going to have an open and free range conversation about whatever hits the dome, Leif. Whatever hits the dome. I know we primed the pump a little bit before we got on, just talking about. We got a little heavy, man, talking about. Society and the structures of society and how different systems work at different levels. We started out talking about uh, capitalism and communism, socialism and fascism. Talking about the kibbutz and just talking about how we can see the good and bad in a lot of systems that humans come up with. It's just it depends on the world view of those who are participating with the system and those who have
Running
influence.
it. Yeah, I said those running it.
Yeah, and those running the system. If you're a human being, you are born, more than likely, you are born into something. So, right off the top, right out the gate, more than likely, you aren't running things. So you have to be socialized and conditioned to whatever system that you're born in. So you want to pay attention to those who have come before you and the things that they are pushing and expressing, and the things that is being deemed acceptable as far as the culture norms and the things that the traditions that are to be pushed and accepted in the group. So, if we started off talking about, actually, we started off talking about Judge Joe Brown and my viewpoint about not only him but other judges like Judge Judy and judge personas, and how I've grown to have a different perspective of TV personas when I get older and mature, and then also when I get to hear some of them outside of their TV personas. So
Yeah.
that's where we started out at, and that's what got us on the conversation, talking about being aware of the our life experiences and how it shapes and molds us. And oftentimes we may find ourselves, because of the experiences that we have in life, to find ourselves to have biased views, and how it's important to be aware that each and every one of us has blind spots as far as our viewpoints and our perceptions, and some of the things we deem right or wrong or acceptable, and how we all have to deal with cultivating the skill of being flexible when needed, and also being firm firm and clear about our convictions as well. So it's important to be clear and have some convictions about you, but also it's important to be flexible and open, at least open, to hearing some uh, opposing viewpoints, kind of broaden your perspectives when need be.
Yeah, I had a
So,
conversation with somebody earlier, and we were talking about the use of comedy to break the
mhm.
barrier of hard conversation.
That's one
Uh,
of the roles that comedy plays. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's definitely a necessity to bring levity to difficult situations, to where you can actually discuss them rather than fight and argue.
Yeah. Yeah. What made that conversation come up? Because I've been, over the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to a lot of conversations revolving just around that topic of comedy, and how important it is to allow space for comedians to do their thing, and that comedians often push the envelope of
Yep.
conversation, and often push the envelope of what's taboo and acceptable to talk about. So comedians and comedy does play a role when it acts as, I think it acts as a alleviation valve,
Yep.
where as an environment you can say things and maybe do things a little bit that in another context will not be acceptable or will not be given some room for grace. Of course, it just depends. I guess even comedians, they have, some of them even have boundaries, and some of them don't. But at
Yeah.
least in that arena, I'm thinking about Dave. I'm thinking about Dave Chappelle right now. It's
Yep.
coming to the top of my head, or even Joe Rogan is coming to the top of my head, as far as pushing the boundaries of conversation to make it acceptable for the regular people to at least say, at least have a look at a topic and begin the conversation around it. So yeah, they comedians kind of break down the barrier and create paths, kind of like an entrepreneur for others to walk in and maybe find a safe haven and have some conversations about that. In other arenas, it may not be safe to say some things.
Yeah, especially like even think about it. Watched the funeral the other day, and even thinking about funerals that I've gone to, the
Yeah,
things that make those times more bearable is laughing, right?
man. Yeah,
Memories and those kinds of things. And I think comedy plays a role in terms of social dialogue to do that same thing, right?
yep.
It's case, I know, for example, this is kind of a different example, but it plays a part. I remember watching video and people were complaining about like officers and medical people like that, that joke at horrific scenes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And people were like, "Oh, that's terrible," and those kinds of things. But what they don't realize is that if you don't joke about that stuff, that those things are deeply traumatizing for everybody, not
Yes.
just the victims, not just the victim's family, but just think the people that have to clean up that scenario, that have to report on that have to be there like in proximity to murders and all of these kinds of things.
On a
If they
regular
don't
basis.
exactly, and if they don't make light of it, even when they do, it doesn't take away the trauma.
Right.
And people don't understand that, right? Especially like military people, right? People in the
Yeah.
military that are they have like what seems like the worst kind of humor. But again, when you think about like the kinds of things that people have to deal with, it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, right? Especially when you think about like there's almost levels. It's like spectrums of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and when I think about like, okay, people that grow up in harsh environments, they like harsher comedy, and so it's kind of just almost par for the course of just dealing with the hard things of life, and so certain things that are crass to the majority of people are hit home directly for them. And so when I think about those kinds of things, and just even in the dialogue that we're talking about, though, that has to exist to make life bearable in bad situations.
Man, when you were talking as far as like comedy and hard comedy, I recently saw a skit on IG. Um, man, you remember the cartoon on PBS of the little Caillou? You remember Caillou?
Caillou, Caillou,
Caillou.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so somebody put together a skit of the African American version of Caillou, where you have the kid and you have the mom talking to the kid. And if you're not familiar with black culture sometimes in the household and the way things are said as far as discipline, it can come across as harsh. But if you're raised in an environment, you understand it. So it just insane that it
Yeah.
made the skit funny, and it made me think about what you were talking about, where if you're not familiar with a particular culture and the context on which things are said and how things are done, then
Yep.
you can perceive it in one way.
Yep.
Versus if you are cultured in that culture, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's how we do things around here.
Yeah,
Um,
because it just makes me think like even the term culture. I know I'm taking a kind of a pivot even from that, but just even the
yeah,
term culture, some people I think a lot of times misinterpret what culture actually is, and how it pertains to individuals. You know, typically when we talk about culture on the public scale, it's like, oh, black people, white people, Asian people, you know, we subdivide all of these large communities, but it's like, no, there are different cultures within
Yes.
demographics, right? and,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's and the subtleties of that are often missed. You know, I know I've had conversations before in times past, like the culture in my household is going to be different than the culture in your household, simply
Yeah.
because you know we're in two different cities. Even though we're close in proximity in terms of it won't take me long to get to where you are, it's still two different cities and two different environments in which we grew up. You know, there's similarities for
Yep.
sure, but there's going to be subtleties that exist in your world that don't exist in mine. And people often miss that when they talk about culture as a whole. You know, it's like, no, not everybody does everything, right? The culture that my children have is way different than the culture I grew up in.
Oh
Way
man.
different. Yeah,
Man. Yeah. That's yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody about my kids' culture and the things that the social behavior and the norms and stuff that they're familiar with, and what I grew up with and familiar with is totally different. As with our parents,
yeah, exactly.
So we were having a conversation, and we I made it. We Somebody was handing me an envelope of cash, right? It
Yeah,
was part of my job, and we were just joking, and they were like, "Don't stop past Deja Vu on the way back." Don't
yeah,
stop.
yeah, yeah,
Just making a joke because they was giving me cash, and I was like, "I'm gonna make it rain," just joking. So when I got back, we started talking about it. I had my son with me. He's like, "Oh, you didn't make the stop, huh?" I was like, "Nah, I opted to be the better parent today, the better father." I was like, "Oh, that's good." And then I was like, "It's no, they probably see worse on TikTok."
yeah. True.
So and that was just referencing what my generation thought was bad, or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they thought was
risque. Yeah,
pushing
yeah,
the envelope, risque. It's like my risque is different from this culture's risque, with the stuff that's out there on the social webs and the media and stuff. So
yeah.
just thinking about one
Just
example.
varies, man. Yeah, it just varies, and I even think about just the environment in which I grew up versus the environment that I provide for my kids. Way different. Way different.
So they don't
It's
know
just
how
like,
good they got it, do they?
yeah, it's like sometimes it's even sometimes it's weird to even remember yourself being in that environment and just the things that that I grew up doing, the things that the way I used to live and the way I used to think. And it's just like culture can even change within your own lifespan, right? Or your own environments and all of those kinds of things that change your mindset about what's culturally appropriate or what you value as culture, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's a good. I guess that's a good thing to stay on and talk about. In that, like you said, when that word pops up in mainstream media or just in regular talk, we have to be mindful, like you said, of that. Culture is ever changing. It's always changing, and there are various cultures amongst whatever group
Yep.
of people you're alluding to. I mean, one person could be in different cultures depending on what hat they're wearing, as
Yep.
far as what area of life you're referencing to. So it's like this overarching umbrellas of, it just
Oh yeah,
depends on the
it's
group.
like the concentric circle model, right? It's like
Exactly.
you go in and out of cultures at will. Even when you were talking, I thought about even in churches, right? Churches have
Yep.
subcultures within the church, and there's some generalized things that are culturally relevant for everybody in a
Right.
particular location. When I say church, I'm talking about one place, one location. I'm not talking about the body of Christ as a whole, but like,
Okay.
but even in one location, there's going to be subcultures within that particular location, and so it's just very fluid in a sense.
Yeah.
And then when you mentioned wearing different hats, Yeah, it's like, okay, and this, I may be CEO here, but if I walk into this place, I'm just a customer, I'm a consumer. Whatever it is that I'm doing at this particular time, when I walk into my home, I may be a father or a wife, whatever, those things just constantly change and redirect and interact. And it's like, even, play out NBA playoffs, and they're superstars with their employees, and and even it just varies. And when they go somewhere else where nobody knows them, they're no longer superstars in that location. It's just how life is. It just ebbs and flows of that. And so people change quite frequently to whatever environment they in, and they either adapt to that culture if they're not a part of it, or they just observe from the outside.
Yeah. Well, thinking about culture, one of the things that's important that we have to be aware of, or just thinking about, is what is or what are the underlying foundational principles that the culture is being built on.
Yep.
When not in saying that, you maybe think about the church, and you were talking about one particular spot, but the one particular spot is built on underlying principles that guides the body,
Yeah,
the whole of the church, single, that all the locations, no matter what flavor you get, it's still going to go back to the foundational underlying flavor that no matter where you're at, no matter where you're at, that you're a part of this one culture. For example, one of the things that I tell my sons from time to time is, just thinking about, you brought up the church, is that no matter where you find yourself on the face of the planet, find a group that claims Christ as their Lord and Savior, and you should, find some,
yeah,
of all the nuances and everything, all the other directions you go with it. But you should, that can be a starting point, a launching pad for you to have a automatic connection with the community that you can then branch off onto. Another thing, one of my sons go to the gym, and I grew up going to the gym, and I was like, no matter where you find yourself on the face of the planet, if you can find a gym, you can
yeah,
automatically connect to that culture and then branch out from there. I mean, no matter where I found myself, I can always connect and make friends in the gym, and then branch off from there.
yeah.
That's with anything.
Yeah, because I know I was having a conversation with someone, and was talking about just like New York specifically. Whenever I travel to New York, I always made sure to, I used to use Meetup quite a lot. This is a few years ago. I guess Meetup is still a thing. When I'm home, I don't use it at all.
Yeah.
But every time I would go to New York City, I would always get on Meetup and find designer meetups. So, and that's how I found out about Giphy. I didn't even know what Giphy was. So I
Yeah.
went to like a company meetup that they had just because it was part of the thing. And so I always made sure that I found myself, you know, embracing the culture of design, because there's going to be similarities, right? Whether
Yep.
it be career or whether it be a hobby, just like you're talking about with gym, is like martial arts. If you're into martial arts, find a gym that does that. And there will be some universal things that will bond you to that
Yep.
particular culture, regardless of the geography, right?
Yep.
Uh, and yeah, there's just a variety of different things that you can do. It's just like, okay, if there's no designers, then maybe it's developers or programmers, or another thing that we would connect with every time we would go to New York is people in Bitcoin, crypto, people that value cryptocurrency. That's another subculture of the culture at large. So there's always little nuances that again, we're talking about, like this the fluidity of going from one culture to another. And the conversation I have in one space, I don't have those same conversations in another space,
Right.
unless there's some crossover. But I when I have conversations with people, it's usually about very specific things that I have those conversations about. It's rare that I have a conversation about everything that I'm interested in outside of me talking to my wife.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
she's in proximity to me doing all these things, and so it's very interesting how that works at scale, at large, and how you fit within different communities and that kind of stuff.
yeah. And I think the conversation, just talking about culture, is very essential. It's very important. I think, especially in today's world, given that, to me, in my view, there is an overt, overarching push to really shape and shift and mold the the Western culture
Yeah, yeah,
to push it in a particular way. And what makes me say that, I'm just thinking about some of the language and some of the phrases that, if you pay attention to them, that's put out there. It's like, why this phrase keeps showing up? Why does this keep getting
yep,
pushed out? Let's look it up and see what it means, and see where this phrase or these words or this slogan, where it's what
yeah,
it's put out to be, and
yeah.
then
Where it originated, who's
yeah,
pushing it,
where's
the
it taking?
agenda. Yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things that got me hipped to the importance of culture, and I always just kind of pay attention to uh, the culture at large, and then also your home culture. That's
yep,
what one of the things that kind of made me pay attention to that more closely is that, number one, my degree is sociology, so
yeah,
I always have my eye and ear to what groups are doing and how they're doing it. But also, one of the things really stuck out to me is the book I refer to a lot. I used to anyway. Is Propaganda by Edward Bernays, and just how that book for me really just honed in on the importance and how powerful it is, how powerful culture is. I'm just thinking about hip hop.
oh
Growing
yeah,
up, we grew up on the edge. We grew up on the edge where hip hop wasn't as acceptable as it is. Hip hop is, as
or
a
as
culture,
accessible. Yeah,
accessible, yeah. But we see how it's shaped and molded uh, the universal culture, the world culture, to where you can go to any part of the earth, and you can make an instant connection with somebody through hip hop anywhere.
yep, yep,
So just that just speaks to how powerful culture is, and that if you aren't intentionally shaping the culture and intentionally being aware of what you're taking in and how you're being influenced and moved, then that could be a good, not so good thing. If the culture is pushing you in a direction where the end game or the outcome is not in your favor.
yeah, or how you intended. Real quick,
Yeah, give me
read
like a.
this. Yeah, yeah. What you say? Put it back up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Facebook has been a good avenue to connect with cultures that you love. For me, it has been gardening, decor, and others. It's been nice to connect with people who love the same things you do, and to also ask questions about different topics.
Yep.
Yeah, social media has definitely opened that up. And again, even with that, going back to what Kevin was just talking about, is being very careful of how, like you talking about with terms, right?
Yeah.
And
Phrase
and, and,
words.
and I would, yeah, phraseology and those kinds of things. I would often have to take a step back and ask myself, when did this particular phrase enter into my vocabulary?
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yep.
something, because it's so subtle, you don't realize it, because you start, a lot of time you start mimicking a lot of the things that you see, a lot of the things that you hear, different things. Like I'll use an obscure one, like bling bling, right?
Yep.
Remember when bling was everywhere? Everybody was talking about bling. Lil Wayne and I forgot the name of that crew. That was
Cash
it
money.
started. Yeah, Cash Money. It started from that song, and then it just became part of the culture as a whole, and everybody was using it. And so, and even when it gets very like the political season, notice a lot of those words that were used during last year have died. They've just gone away. Certain key phrases, phraseology, it just vanished. It popped up and it was part of everybody's vocabulary until it was no longer useful. After the election was over, a lot of those words just died down.
Can you name one? Like one phrase to me that I still hear, but I'm not hearing as much, is "build back better."
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
What?
Yeah, because I'm always focused on
Oh, okay.
animation now. I'm not focused on that stuff. Well, go ahead.
That's just one that's popped in my head. It's like I heard it a lot, and it's kind of just. I mean, you still hear it, but you don't hear. I don't hear it as much anyway.
Yeah, she said triggered is one.
Yeah, triggered.
Yeah, that and if anybody has any other like key phrases that were part of the pop culture within the past year, last year versus no longer now, uh, yeah, I can't even think of any off the top of my head because. But again, it's just like those things because there was one in particular I was thinking of when I mentioned it. I can't remember it, but I was like I paused. Cancel culture is the big one now.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and
Wokeism, woke.
wokeism, the fleek.
On fleek.
I don't know if I ever used that one. Maybe I did, being silly. Yeah, fake news. That's another one.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah, that
man.
was via 2019. They were priming the fake news thing, and then yeah, it spilled over.
But a lot of some of these words popped up in our conversations a lot, or
Yeah, that's
something.
what I said.
Yeah.
Like the whole fake news because that was like a propaganda tactic. Uh, like literally that phraseology. He said hotel. Radical left. Yeah.
Everything
Uh,
was fake news, though. It's like,
yeah, I know. Gaslighting. Yep, gaslighting was big.
like I seen Kevin over at work. Fake news. He wasn't over there. I seen Kevin walk down the street. No, you did. That's fake news.
Yeah, yeah, that was huge. Because I want to say 2019, but it may have been even 20 as early as 2018. Maybe even earlier than that. Maybe like 2016. Sheeple, yeah, Sheeple's been around for a while, but that comes up like every 4 years or every 2 to 3 years, depending on which political cycle and which people try to decide to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that stuff. And so, but you got to be careful though, because you become part of. You start
Well, that's
bringing it
like
into your own vernacular.
like you said. That's a power in how subtle, how
Yeah,
powerful it is, and how
yeah. Fake
subtle
news.
it
That was
is.
part of his campaign.
So yeah, man. Now you make me think of a thought I just wrote down, just talking about being mindful of your words and your language, and how you phrase things.
Right.
Because words are very powerful, and words have the ability to mess with somebody's thinking, mess with how somebody's feeling. And then when you mess with somebody's
Yeah.
feelings, you mess with somebody's mind, you could be messing with their actions. If I start talking crazy to Leif, he started to be like, "What? You getting his feelings?"
They're like,
Right?
like the flat, like the old flat lines, like we go off the air. Listen
It's
here,
just
man.
words. It's just words, man. Sticks and stones,
Exactly.
man. Words don't hurt, right?
Exactly.
Like, nah, words do
Exactly.
hurt.
Like you said, words can give life or kill a soul, and that's so true.
Man. Oh my goodness, she made me think of somebody I knew growing up, and how this particular person would just kill the dreams of one of my cousins.
That's not funny.
It's just not funny, and it was
Yeah.
harsh, but like she said, words have the ability to kill somebody's soul. But
I
the
don't know why
good
that's funny.
but the good thing is the outcome is great, because this particular person has become a role model in the community, and
Right.
is a very upstanding person, and is very successful. So he rose above that, so
I don't know. I was talking to somebody about that kind of thing, like just growing, like just certain things like you would hear growing up from certain people, and like at the time you just dealt with it, and as you get older, it's like, man, that person was
they
crazy, they was abusive, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's very powerful. And then of course going back to one of my favorite dudes,
David Goggins.
of course. But even though he uses a lot of harsh language,
Yeah.
he still doesn't. He really doesn't self-deprecate from the standpoint of he uses harsh words towards himself, but he basically shows where his shortcomings are in his dealing. So if you don't know who he is, David Goggins, he's a Navy SEAL, Marine. Uh, he was something else. He was Mr. Military Man. He was
Yeah,
all military. He runs ultra marathons, like 150 miles, 150-mile races, which is crazy. But anyway, he talks very harsh to himself, like just to motivate himself to get better. But a lot of times when people talk, self-deprecate in a sense, they
yes, ma'am.
do it and it's just consistently self-deprecating, meaning that you just constantly think bad of yourself. It's not to
Yeah,
make yourself better, is
yeah.
that you truly start believing that you're lesser than, and that's
The
crazy.
self talk is toxic.
Yeah, exactly, guys. Yeah,
That's very
he's a
true.
monster for real.
Yeah, he's one of those persons that put, we're talking about comedy and people that push the edge. He's one of
Yeah,
those guys to me that lives on the edge of as far as capability of
and
what a
period.
human
Yeah,
mentally can do and achieve. And he's kind of one of those persons that pushes the envelope to say, okay, I can, you know, the ability of what it means to be a human is much more. There's a lot of room left in us that can be obtained and aspired to. So he's an inspiration in that manner to me. Just thinking about him and his mindset and the things he's able to do achieve with his mind and
yeah,
having the control and management of his attitude and his mind is very inspirational and it's aspirational. And he's making me think about the movie Limitless. I happened to
yeah, yeah,
catch
yeah,
that the
yeah,
other
yeah.
night, and how if you haven't seen the movie, it's about a guy who gets a drug, a brain drug that helps open up his brain's abilities and capabilities that otherwise we have. Um, Many of us have natural governors on our mind and our brain and things that we're able
Oh
to
yeah,
do. And David talks about that. The governors that we have on us, that you have to cultivate the ability to push past those governors. He says that our governors on our bodies and our minds and our attitudes and stuff is like at 40%. He said you probably got like 60% past that governor. But I don't
yeah,
know, man. If I got 200 pounds, 300 pounds on my chest, and I'm shaking, I'm giving out, I think I'm at my limit there. It's
yeah,
like, nah,
yeah,
you got
exactly.
50%, man.
Yeah, it just made me think. I was watching the dude. Was it Larry Wheels? This is a completely side conversation. He had two 25 on each arm in terms of like the bar, not just dumbbells. He had the whole bar. He was lifting them. Anyway, it was a completely side note. But anyway, getting back to David Goggins and the way his mindset and the way he thinks. The one thing going back to our conversation earlier, not only did he, focus his self talk, but again, the culture aspect of it, the people he started surrounding himself by
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that same culture, the ultra marathoners, the soldiers, the Navy SEALs, all of those people shared within that same culture, and so culture can be a very powerful thing in terms of pushing you beyond your limits as well. It can be a very detrimental thing,
yeah,
also depending
yeah.
upon the kind of culture you surround yourself around is also. So
Thinking
you have
about gang culture.
yeah, gang culture, drugs, drug culture, people that just because when you think about the quote unquote crack house, that's a subculture in and of itself, right?
Yeah,
I used to work with what do you call those people? Uh, where they're going to rehab. I used to go with a friend, and we used to go talk to those people a lot. And like literally down the street from the rehab clinic was like probably not. It wasn't even a block. It was like three houses down was like a crack house. And so a lot of the guys would leave the rehab center to go to
and
and just
go.
stay at the crack house. And so just that kind of stuff. But there was a subculture within that culture also, and so,
Yeah,
it can either lift you up or take you down, like
to
we were
take you
saying.
down. Yeah, that's the power of community. And that's the beauty, going back to what Ms. Shauna said, talking about on the internet, we now have the capability to connect with the culture that we want to, that you choose to connect with,
Yeah.
talking about decor and gardening. And I was thinking about that the other day, how beautiful it is that, you can get online and you can really plug into. Man, even though I don't participate in a lot of conversations, I'm sitting there taking notes. I'm like, okay, this dude. I'm like, oh, this sister right here, she's speaking all kinds of game, and I
Yeah,
take
yeah.
it and I try to apply it in my life wherever I can. And it's amazing the access and availability that we have that today at our fingertips. I was talking to my son today about that, talking about, we were driving past. We were over in that neighborhood by the bus station. You know what I'm talking about, on New Circle Road, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we were just talking
He's
about
talking about Lexington for those
Lexington,
people.
Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and just talking about, hey, if you find yourself, this, that, and the other, do this. You can go here, go there. Um, and I was talking about how in your world, as long as you got a phone that has internet or Wi-Fi capability, you are you're ahead of the game. You can push a few buttons and you can make some connections and find what you need. I was telling about some of the apps that couch surfing apps
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Like, hey, just get on this app. I knew somebody who went to Brazil couch surfing, or there's people that just couch surf all over the world and stuff.
Yeah,
So
what was funny, like back in 2014, like every city we went into, we were couch surfing.
really,
We didn't have an app though. It was like we just
so
show
how did
up. Just show up. Like I'm serious. Just show up. Just show up in places. We would go to conferences with no tickets.
yeah,
Like we
yeah, I
we would
remember
go.
telling you about that.
Yeah, we would travel everywhere and just be there. And what was funny was, again, I know I'm squirrel. Uh,
No, it's fine.
like the people that we would meet at one conference, we knew because again we're talking about subculture, so like this is the cryptocurrency, and those people, they would be at the other location, so we always had some place to go. From after we went to the first one, we always had some place to connect when we went to the other ones, right? And it's the same thing that continuously can happen. And again, utilizing, like you said, apps. LinkedIn was a big one for me then and still is now. Even today, talking about what you're talking about with your son. I've talked to a gentleman. He's in his 70s, and he was talking about. He literally said the same thing you just said to your son to me. He's like, when I was growing up, there was none of that. I was like, yeah, I know. I was pre-internet too. But he was like, I had to learn everything, just try to figure it out, and now
Yeah,
you can just go online and just do it. And so it's those kinds of examples that, again, as things change, as the culture as a whole changes because of technology, then you can actually seek out and learn those nuances within cultures without even having to be in the culture. You can just watch somebody talk about it. You can get on an app that talks about it. Maceo mentioned, the black nerd subculture. You
yeah.
can lurk like Kevin and just jump in a room on Clubhouse, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, Twitter. All of them have similar features now, and just sit there and just listen and pay attention.
So go pregame. Natalie Nicole said network is so important. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
huge.
didn't realize, how on point that, that phrase is until I got older. Like you always say, the net worth is in the network, and
Yeah,
the best resource is people.
period.
So
Best resource on the planet is people.
love God and love people, and you should do well in life,
That's
right?
it. That's it. And that's so true. And if we neglect that, and again, this goes back to the culture piece again.
Yeah,
So culture
yeah,
again is very huge, and be careful of the manipulation of culture, right?
yes,
And going back to the whole 2020 example is when you let one subculture convert you and make you do things, you start fighting against people
mm,
that in other instances they're still part of your culture. That's what's crazy, right? Like it's like when you think about going to work. At work, you have many different people that have many different ideologies, many different things. You have a work culture, and you have additional subcultures. you can get along fine, and then one thing can set you off to where you become tribal over one ideology versus another ideology, even though you share multiple ideologies with that same person. It's just weird how those dynamics work.
So what do you say to that as far as being mindful of that?
Just again, pay attention to. Uh, I want to say it's almost self restraint, but not self restraint in the sense that I'm,
You
controlling
don't
myself.
express your truth.
But yeah, but just pay attention to what's manipulating you.
Okay.
That's always the key, right? Because something,
But what's triggering you?
before we got online, we were talking about a whole variety of things, which kind of led us down this path. Is just being mindful of. It's like, hey, why am I doing this right now? It's like, did I have this same like a couple weeks ago before all of these people start getting on and hyping me up? Did I feel the same way? Or is it like what's making me do this now? It's like this, again, going back to the work example, it's like if we've been working together for 10 years, fine, no problems, and all of a sudden we're at one another's necks. Why? Right? And then why did it die down, or why? Pay attention to those triggers, like you mentioned, right? Because again, it's sometimes it's almost like going movie on you. What's the Winter Soldier, right? The dude,
Oh, yeah.
you start reading the sequence of words, and
You
then he
start.
goes
You're
from
done.
being docile to being an assassin, right?
Straight
And so
killer.
yeah, so you got to be careful about those words that are being read and the way you're taking in those sequences, because sometimes you can just go out of your mind, literally. Some people just
Yeah.
literally lose their mind and just get wild.
Again, well, that speaks to the power of culture and programming, to where
Yeah,
literally we are programmed to where we don't think about how we're reacting. We're just reacting versus responding.
good
George
point.
Floyd and Trump caused a lot of heated conversations at work. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it caused a lot of heated conversations for a lot of people everywhere, and I think that is something that, given somebody's particular viewpoint about those two subjects, can really, I think it kind of ruined a lot of relationships for a lot of people, no matter where you find yourself at work or wherever. So what do you say to that, given that you have to be in an environment where somebody may have a particular viewpoint about those subjects and topics and others, that that you have to deal with somebody, you have to have relationships with people, um, irrespective of whether they agree with you on everything or not. How do you
yeah.
manage that?
It's the fine lines where I liked you until you appear maybe racist. Oh, the fine lines. Yeah. So how do you manage that? So there's a variety of ways to manage a lot of things, right? And
Like take the work environment and say that somebody may have a viewpoint to where you may think it's racist, but you have to work with that person to have to at least get along in order to move the agenda of whatever the work agenda is.
right. So you're asking the wrong person, right?
Oh yeah. I'll put that out to the audience because yeah, never mind. I'm asking the audience because
Okay.
we're like oil and water on this one, because me, I'm a tap dancer. I'm a I'm gonna go along to get along.
You're
Whatever the
playing the
work
peanut
agenda,
band. You're like,
whatever the work. I'm joking. I'm being I'm tongue in
yeah,
cheek about it. Yeah, but I'm the person that, hey, let's just get it done. I don't care. I don't particularly care about your viewpoints about pretty much anything at work. Let's just get the work done and everybody go home and be who they want to be happy. That's the type of person I am. But
yeah.
I think we know how Leif is. If not, go
Yeah.
ahead and lay it down, Leif. Go ahead and remind us. How would you respond to that, Leif?
But Shamika said I had some full on respectful conversations. I can move on. Yeah,
Okay.
like so for me, like yeah, I'm gonna be confrontational about it straight up. I just am. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not. So when I say confrontational about it, I'm gonna be matter of fact.
Respectful. Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not a belligerent person by any
Right.
means. I'm chill, but you're not gonna skate out of it in a sense. And so I'm gonna be very straightforward about it. And again, it's like I'm gonna draw some fine lines for real.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said you're asking the wrong person because sometimes you don't have to stay there.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I'm of the mindset, again, I'll say me, I'm of the
Mhm.
mindset that every work environment is not where you need to be.
Yeah.
Uh,
We can agree on
yeah,
that.
and what I mean by that is it's like okay, if it's two-way, what I mean by like you're on the same level in organizational hierarchy, right? And there's somebody's being disrespectful in terms of views. I don't care if you have an opposing view. There's plenty of opposing views just within my family. That's not a big
Mhm.
deal, right?
Right.
And even I mean, I live in Kentucky. I know some people are gonna have some racist views, but if you bring your racist views toward me, you're gonna get dealt with. Period.
Okay.
It's just the reality of it. But if the organization itself backs those views that are contrary to me,
Okay.
right? If they back those views, then one, you're probably gonna get sued.
So that's the work culture
Yeah,
itself
the work culture itself, if they
is
don't, yeah, if they don't back you in terms of equality or whatever, then there's going to be a problem bigger than just this individual, right?
okay.
Because work culture is problematic in the U.S. as a whole because we diversity is another key word that's been happening.
Yeah.
It's been on overdrive since the George Floyd, the protests and things like that. Not that they haven't been talking about it before, but it's been on overdrive. And I'm talking not in sense of a fake diversity, where they just want to, hey, we're diverse now. Look, we got somebody, look,
Look at
Jim's
Kev.
working in the exactly. Leroy's been working for our company for 20 years, and Leroy's like, I hate y'all. And so that kind of thing. Not talking about that, but if there's not uh an advocate an advocacy structure within the company, then there's a problem. There's a big problem. And what I'm saying is you can sue, but you don't have to stay there. You really don't because it's going to be toxic to your mental health. There are plenty of long people that have been in companies for the longevity of their life and has been detrimental to their families. Financially it may be good, but they bring the stress and all of that stuff home. And so, yeah, it said, and HR is not your friend. They're there to protect the company. I'll just post that. And so you have to be mindful. And again, I'm always about being aware, right?
And
Being
that
aware.
and what you're saying is that's around anything,
Yeah,
you know,
this is
right?
anything. The beauty of being an adult, a free adult for whatever that means to you, is that you don't have to be there.
Okay.
As an adult, I can leave any given situation. I can walk away. And so utilize your right to walk away in some of those environments, right? And so anyway, I know I've taken it way beyond what Kevin
No, it's
asked.
fine.
But just going back to the individual level, there has to be some modicum of respect there. If there's not a modicum of respect, then there's no conversation anyway. It's just the reality of it. And so if the individual, or maybe it's you, maybe you're the individual that needs to be put in check, right? Because sometimes we get so enraged that we want to let people know how we feel. They gonna feel me today. If you get on that, then you're gonna suffer the consequences, and rightfully so for anybody, whether it's me, whether it's you. If I get out of pocket in terms of I'm violating you because of the way I feel, then that's still wrong, right? And so if you can't have a respectful conversation with somebody and they still want to talk, then it's like, okay, this is a HR company problem. If they don't deal with it right, then I'm gonna deal with it. and then if you keep crossing the line, then legally I have the right to respond to you however you come to me. And so I'll just leave it at that. And so again, but just getting back to just, you know, being chill, that we interact with people on a daily basis. We have no idea what they think.
Yeah.
Personally, some most of the time I don't care what you think. I really don't. I just don't care what you think. Let me go do what I need to do. Let me leave you. But once I know how you think, then that's great. As far as I'm concerned, it's great. Now I know how to deal with you from
Respond.
this point forward. Yeah, I know how to respond. I know how to deal with you from this point forward. If I found out this company is racist and they're backing things that I don't agree with, that's awesome. I don't have to spend my money there. I don't have to work there. I don't have to do a whole lot of things there, right? I can let other people know, hey, this is the stance they took. I don't have to be with them. You know, now the phrase is cancel culture. Yeah, whatever. You know, I'm not with the whole cancel culture mantra,
Right.
you
Right.
know, because it can mean many different things to many different people. Because as far as
So,
I'm
so,
concerned, the things that are supposed to be canceled, these networks are still around. They haven't
so
been
you're more
canceled
of the
at all.
mindset, just let people be, and then you
Yeah, just don't violate me.
move
Period.
accordingly.
Don't violate
Gotcha.
my rights. Don't violate whatever. Long we good. Keep your words to yourself. Don't talk crazy. Don't talk crazy to me. Don't talk crazy to my wife, my kids. We good.
Yeah.
You can look at me crazy. I'll look at you crazy back. It's that simple. Just keep it there.
Yeah.
Don't take it don't take it further. Don't try to intimidate. Don't try to do any of that other stuff, right? Because that's
Yeah.
when you take it beyond the means of I just have an opinion, right? Once you go beyond the means of an opinion, then we got problems. And so you just want to make sure that you navigate that. And also in some situations, again, not just talking about work, but in some situations, you don't have to be where the problems are. You don't have to be around the problematic people. You can't always avoid that, but when you can, why even do it?
Make use of it.
Right? Because I know, like, old me, I used to show up in places where I know I would get conflict because I just wanted to, you know what I'm saying?
With that
I wanted
smoke.
conflict to happen, right? And so, but I know how to avoid those situations now.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be aware, be socially aware, be culturally aware. And cultural awareness is huge, right? Because not all cultures are safe cultures. And what I mean, that you know, there's repercussions to getting out of line within in certain cultures, right? So you just have to be aware. Period. That's just part of safety. It's just part. You know, I'm big on safety. I'm big on safety with my family. I'm big on safety with everything, really. So you just have to be culturally aware. It's like, okay, this is not appropriate. This is appropriate. You know, whatever. And so just those kinds of things.
Yeah. Cancel culture only works against marginalized people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So anyway,
One of
I
the
know
things,
I was talking on rant. Go ahead.
no. One of the things I wanted to touch on that you hit on was just recognizing that um, some cultures, work cultures, can be toxic. And when you notice, it's important to notice that when you start bringing that stuff home, or you
Yeah,
start bringing that, toxicity of one place and bringing it with you to another place, that's when it's like, okay, let me sit down and think about this. Is this what I really want in my life? And is this what I really want to pass on to those in my circle and those around me that are really close to me and attached to me. When you were talking,
yeah,
made me think about this one particular job that I had, and I noticed that the stress and everything of that job carried over, and it just brought to my attention of how important it is to keep work life at
yeah,
work, and then keep make home life as good as it can be, and whatever me as an individual has to do to make sure that um, I'm setting the mode or setting the standard of the atmosphere of the house or whatever. I have to do whatever I have to do to make sure that I'm right.
yeah.
Which, for example, could be something like taking those long ride homes the long way with the radio off, the window, just letting the steam blow off or whatever, or just going to hitting the gym, or just whatever it is that you have to do as an individual um, to be a good influence and set the standard for whoever is attached to you.
Yeah, and also again, this is always an option that we have to exercise or just leave that environment
Yeah,
altogether.
yeah, or just leave. Yes.
Yeah, and again, it's for your own mental health. It's for the mental health of the people around you, because Natalie, she mentioned marginalized people. The problem is, like, if you're in a work environment where you have no power, you tend to take that energy into a place where you do, and you take it out on the people that have to deal with that, right? And so you want to be very, very aware of that, and especially, and this is where racism becomes a huge problem, right? Because it becomes a psychological problem for those that have to deal with racist in environments and those kinds of things. They call them microaggressions, but they're aggressions nonetheless. So the size of the aggression doesn't matter if they're consistent aggressions, right? And so you just have to be very aware of that. And then you have to have that real conversation is like, do I need to stay here? Do I need to stay? And if you can leave, then leave. But the hard problem is when you feel marginalized, when you feel oppressed, when you don't have, the capability or the capacity to see beyond your circumstances. For a lot of people, this is real. This is part of, psychological warfare and all those kinds of things. Then you don't see leaving as an option. And that's when you need community. That's when you need to change your culture, because sometimes your culture can feed into that. And what I mean by that is the environment and the kind of people that you hang around, the mindset. When you get around a certain group of people, this could be family, this could be a selected group of friends, this could be a variety of different things. When they affect your mindset in the wrong way, and again, sometimes somebody else has to tell you. They have to tell
Yeah.
you that something that you don't want to hear. You
Yeah.
know, it's that adult, it's that sage mentor, it's that friend, it's that person passing by, like, hey, I wouldn't hang around those people if I were you. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? But at least take it in and see it for what it is sometimes, because that's hard to do. You get used, habits and all those kinds of things form to where it just becomes part of who you are, right? This is part of
Yeah.
who I am, and then part of who you are is killing you. It's killing your family, and so you got to be aware of that kind of stuff. She said leave, best option, and again, but if you're not socially aware of that, and because sometimes it just happens slowly, and sometimes it's just patterned after your life experiences,
Yeah.
that you don't understand that you have the capability and the possibilities of leaving don't seem real to you.
Man,
Especially if it's something you aspire to do. It's like, man, I finally got that job, and that job is killing you. So go
you
ahead.
making me think of the phrase of "I feel stuck."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's funny because I had a conversation with my wife. We were talking, I guess, last week or whatever, and I don't even know what made me think about it. It was something. It was I don't know. I'll just fill in the gaps, but it was like I was just saying to her that I remember when I was in like early in college or maybe after college, I can't remember, where I would only look in the paper for a certain range of income type of job, right? It didn't occur to me that I could think way bigger than what was in this newspaper. And of course, thank God things slowly started changing in my life to where I started seeing bigger options. But sometimes I got so myopic in terms of the way I viewed things that I didn't even realize I was stuck. I didn't even know it. And looking back, I can see that I was, but while I was there, I couldn't see it. And so sometimes, just being in a place, you know,
That
to
was me.
where to where you aren't exposed to more, it's
Yeah.
hard to dream of more. We see stuff
Yeah.
on TV, but it's just TV,
Until
right?
you actually go there and
Yeah,
yeah.
until you experience different things, until you meet people, until you change your culture, until you get around people that actually feed into who you can be and all of that kind of stuff, then you get stuck and you don't even know it. And so you got to be very mindful of that. And again, this is where, going back to, we always talk about the 4 C's. I always talk about community.
Yeah.
Community is huge. Make sure that you get around a community of people that have your best. Get around a community of people that love you. That
Yes.
and what I mean by love you, I ain't talking about just because you mama's baby. I'm talking about people that love you, like for real. That they only want the best for you. Because sometimes people use the term love, and it's a toxic kind of relationship. Go ahead.
Right. And when you were saying love, you got to remember the way you know somebody love you is by the actions that they take towards you. Uh, when you said that, I was looking at an article about a Holocaust survivor who does a lot of work, and she was, one of the statements that she made was, "Love is not what you feel; it's what you do." And
Yep.
just thinking about the community, it's about what is your community doing? What are some of the
Yep.
things that show that that they love you? Like for example, one of the things you talk about is how when I forgot who it was that passed away, but the community showed up with food and stuff at your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
can't get
Because
more
it's
showing the
those
love.
kinds of things. Yeah, because again, it's like I always like use my kids and my family as an example. I might say I love Kevin, but I actually love my family because my income goes to support their lives.
Yeah,
Period. Whether I say it or not, which I do constantly, but whether I say it or not, my actions show that hey, I'm sacrificing my energy for you to survive and live, right? And
yeah.
so, like you said, it's a show thing,
And
and
that's
and
one of the ways you can understand and realize what you truly value and love too, is by looking
yeah,
at your own, just looking at where
yeah,
your time
real talk.
goes, where your money goes. I say I do this, I like this, but like, it's like, well, what is your actions?
Yeah, where's your
Actually,
energy? Yep. Shamika said, "Man, I've been at my job for 15 years. I allowed myself to feel stuck, bro. I now feel like taking more risks, but it took me a long time to get there. Yeah, and it takes a whole lot of people a long time to get there. Like seriously, I'm glad that you recognize that because some people don't recognize it. I didn't
some people
recognize it.
don't. Some people
Yeah,
don't get out of it.
yeah, I didn't recognize it at all, and so like I said, I'm recognizing it in hindsight. Like
Yeah,
I wasn't recognizing it then, and so you just have to again get around people that will tell you the truth. In love, of course, yeah, sacrifice is a great indicator of love. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, and so it's funny. He said that this side note, like we had a snake in our yard. We probably got more than one for real. And I don't fool with snakes. My wife don't fool with snakes. My kids don't
sounds
fool
like,
with snakes.
well, you on the show with Kev then, huh?
Yeah, but it was something that our kids asked. They was like, "Would you do something with it? Would you save us from the snake if you had to?" And it's like, of course, because you get over your own fears to help somebody else. It's just that sacrificial part is real. Kevin's like, I don't know about that, but
I'm thinking I'm come over in the morning and put a snake at your front door.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you get shot. Trying to endanger me. but yeah, but it's just that kind of
It's on
stuff,
my
right?
property.
So I'll put an impromptu sign. but yeah, man. So it's like little stuff like that, right? Just sacrificing is an indicator of what you love, and even when it comes to career, it comes to focus. I sacrificed a news cycle for me to focus on this particular industry I'm in. I sacrifice entertainment and fun just to do the things that I love and have a passion for, right?
Yep.
And so if you can find that, because not everybody has it, I didn't always have it. It takes time to know who you are, and sometimes the only way to figure out what works for you is to try a whole lot of different things. And when
Yeah.
you get people in an oppressed state, I'll put it that way, then that freedom to experience things feels very limited.
It could be fearful. It's like
Yeah, yeah, because
one of the
over
things when
side
I
of the wall
started,
is danger, right? Go ahead.
man, when I started realizing how free we really you really can be and you really are as just a human being, it's frightening. It can be a frightening feeling, as an exhilarating feeling. So you can feel frightened and excited
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
because a lot of times it's literally a battle of fear. Like I know for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else. I can speak from my own experiences. It really came down to a battle of fear, and it's like, okay, what is it that I'm fearing? Like, truthfully, what is it that I'm fearing? What is it that I'm afraid of? Why am I not taking the steps to do the things that I know I should do? Right. And when I started unraveling that, or however you say it, then it got me past just a whole lot of stuff, man. It literally did. It saved me time. It literally saved me a lot of time because it's like, okay, if I remember, I'll put this in context. I remember in 2009 when I knew I was about to get laid off. I knew it ahead of time, because I rode to work with the VP of the company, so he gave me heads up on everything, right? And so I knew that was coming, and it was then when I faced my fear, like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? Like literally, that's the way I just looked at it. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? If I lose everything that I have materially, I still have my wife, I still have my children. What's the worst that could happen? This is just a job. I got this job. I know how to get a job like this because I've done it. It's not a mystery anymore. I know it's like, okay, I apply, I go here, I got resume, no big deal, right? And so when I started thinking like that, it slowly started changing the way I viewed stuff. It slowly started changing the way it's like, you know what? I don't need them. I'm good. And because I remember, telling my wife, she was crying. She's like, when I found out I called, I was like, today's the day. I just knew. I was like, today's the day. When it finally happened, and I was good. Like, I'm serious. Like, I just felt I was actually happy that they were letting me
yeah.
go because I was like, okay, this is the first day of my freedom. I just felt it, and I ain't been back since. Period. And so just that kind of mindset, it did something to me, right? And again, when it's part of the experiences of life, it's part of
It
those kinds
made
of,
you
yeah. I felt
made you
like I can do
unemployable.
whatever. Yeah, I can do whatever. It's like, that it was during that time when I came up. If I can't find a job, I'll just create my own. That's simple. I'll just figure out how to. There's all kinds of ways to make money. And when I felt comfortable in that, when I felt comfortable in the fact that if I lost everything, who cares? Like, who cares? There's all kinds of assistance programs that can help me or help my family. Who cares?
Now
I quit
you
worrying
really
about everybody else. That
so
that
now
was really
you
the biggest fear. I just
yeah
quit worrying about everybody else.
now you push it against culture and perception and what's deemed successful and not successful and what we're trained to think is successful, not successful.
Yeah. And that's the thing, bro. Like, it's like, again, just acknowledgement is huge. Truth is huge. And you can start, step into the truth and like looking at things for what they truly are, right? Not the illusion of things, but looking at things for what they truly are. Then you realize that you know what? It's I can do whatever. And that's and that's not to say that I didn't progress over time to
Right,
really fine tune that, but
right.
I started overcoming the
Your
fear.
mindset was you clicked.
Yeah, it's like I was sold. I was sold that, you know what, I'm gonna be okay. The, I'm just gonna be okay, and it may be, pie in the sky, or however you want to see. But once I started doing that, it just man, seriously, it just changed. So how did you gain confidence in your talents and make them work for you? By putting them out there, straight up. I know it sounds cliche, but the way I'll use art for an example because I always talk about art, right? Uh, the way I got confidence in my art, and this was a couple years ago, is I just started posting. I started posting the art that I knew wasn't good, like literally. I did. I knew I wasn't good, but I knew I could get better. I believe, again, belief is part of it, right? I
Yep.
believe that if I put enough time and energy into doing art, that I would get better over time. So I put it out there. Like at one point, I was posting every single day. I was posting sketches, and then when I look back on those sketches, like several months later, it's like, man, that's kind of whack, right? It was kind of like, I could see because I was getting better. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
see it. I just knew it wasn't right. I didn't know what wasn't right about it, but I could just tell something wasn't right. And over time, I just knew I would get better. And the more I did it, the more confidence I gained, the more feedback I had. Because it's like I remember looking at my Instagram page, I had no post. I was like, okay, I'm looking at all these people I'm following. They got like hundreds of posts. I was like, I got to start somewhere. So I started with one. Then I had another one, and then I had another one, and then I ain't great break out into no rap or nothing.
Yeah.
but
And
it started over time. I quit putting a time limit on what I did. That was another thing because and I've talked about this. We've talked about this plenty of times, even in the business Lamar and I had. I remember this. It was a night, like both of us. It was just like this thing just didn't feel right, like at all. And then like we were in like the Black and Williams Center at 3 a.m. I remember this, and we were just talking. It was like, man, you know what? It's just gonna take time, bro. It's just gonna take time. Like we was like, I mean, we were grinding all like I'm talking about 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day. Like we were the rest of the time we would just work all night long, and we couldn't felt like we couldn't get anywhere. Like we were just like, I mean, killing ourselves literally. And then it was just like one night, man, we was just like, you know what? This is gonna take time. And after that night, I kid you not, everything changed from that point forward. Everything. Because it's like, you know what? I'm getting some sleep. I'm gonna wake up. I'm still gonna grind, but I'm not gonna try to rush the process because you either have money or you have time. There's no in between. And money buys you time because you just pay other people for their time, right? And
Yep.
so once we started understanding that, things just got smoother.
So that's where trust the process comes in at.
Yeah, you got to. And the hard part about trusting the process is that you can't see any. It's just nebulous. It just feels like you're doing nothing. It's like just swimming in place, like trying to doggy paddle, and you're not going nowhere. It's just what it feels like. It's like, but over time, and again, that's the hard part. That consistency. That the consistency is what does a lot of people in because the results don't come until a lot of consistent effort has been put in, and that's the most difficult part for a lot of people is that they've gotten to the point where they're in a desperate situation and they need immediate results, and consistency doesn't help you get that immediately. And that's where a lot of people fall off because they get desperate. This goes back to our abundance versus scarcity mindset.
Yeah. Yep.
That affects everything, and until you get that, until you really drive that into your head, then you're going to be floundering and not you'll give up.
Yeah, and
And
you'll be grabbing or whatever you can if you have a scarcity mindset because you think it won't be no more. You think it's the only
yeah,
thing.
if you want to
When
hoard,
you
right?
have Yeah, when you have an abundance mindset, you realize, hey, there's opportunities every day, all
Yeah,
day.
I got
It'll be there
time.
when you're ready. I got
That's what
time.
gives you the time. Is because you don't think the opportunities will run out. I got time. And again, you alleviate a lot of stress when you start thinking that way. And this is not to say that you don't keep putting forth the effort.
Yeah,
My
it's
man,
gonna say you
Mason,
don't have a sense of urgency or anything. Go ahead.
yeah, okay. He said I
I
had
had
to
to go
go to
to
therapy.
therapy.
Oh, go ahead, you got it.
I had to go to therapy to start seeing that. Still at the beginning of my journey, those habits are hard to break. Yeah, bad
Yeah,
habits die hard. I had a professor. He said all the time. He's Asian. It was a computer class, programming class. He'd be like, "Bad habits die hard."
oh, yeah, they slow, painful death.
Yeah,
That's a motivation bending ideas. Yeah, it's like just give it time.
and the banging ideas.
Yeah, just give it time.
Man, you talking a little bit now.
But yeah, it's just like all of our personal journeys are just different. Huh? I wonder why I said that.
Mrs. White, support is key.
No,
Yes.
but that's real though. That's
Yeah.
it's real. I know she's being silly, but that's real. Support is definitely everything. Again, this goes back to community. Uh,
Yeah.
I say it all the time, going back to, Natalie earlier, when she was talking about the network, and we talked about, the net worth, and that's not just money. The net
Right.
worth of who you are, the abundance and all of that is people. Like, again, the best resource on this planet is people. The worst resource on this planet can also be people. So you better choose them wisely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you don't have zirconia, instead of a diamond, right? And
Yeah.
so just make sure that again, so the culture is huge. Surround yourself with people that care. Surround yourself with people that love you. As a parent, I know there's plenty of parents in the thread. When you talk to your children, that's one of the lessons. Like, hey, be careful who you hang around. You
Yeah.
know, the quality of people that you have in your life can affect you in all kinds of ways. They can
Man,
be extremely detrimental. They can cause you death, like immediate death and long term death, right?
those
And
conversations. Yeah.
yeah, and so you have to choose those metals as if they're precious metals for real. The people that are in your vicinity, because they dictate how you think, they dictate how you walk, how you talk, how you move throughout your day. You have to be extremely careful about who you bring into your circle and the communities you go into, the culture that you surround yourself around. I can enter in and out of certain cultures, but I'm not going to stay in cultures that are toxic for me. I'm just not, because I know I see the results, right? Again, I
Mm-hmm.
talk about situational awareness as part of safety. You always
Yep.
have to be situationally aware of where you are in any given time. It's the difference of getting shot in the supermarket versus escaping, right? Being situationally aware. And that's very well. And it's and the subtle things that can do that to you is just the people you hang around on a consistent basis. So you got to be very mindful of that.
Any more comments?
No, that was the last comment. My wife.
Okay. Yeah, man. Just talking about culture today. We kind of just stopped on that point and talking about getting stuck and how to get unstuck. We talked about a whole bunch of things, man. Just had
Yeah,
a free range conversation, which is, I think, is probably one of the best formats that we can take from time to time on a regular basis.
agreed.
Um, it's good. So you got anything else you want to touch on?
Uh, Not me. I appreciate you, Shamika. We appreciate everybody that definitely stopped by,
Yeah, we
made
did.
comments. That makes the conversation richer.
Yeah.
It gives us, because again, we're not authority. We're only authorities on our own opinions and our own experiences.
I'm
And
the authority.
exactly, so I'm the best league ever. No, but but seriously though, it's like getting feedback. Just seeing your thoughts. The things that you're going through, your experiences help us. And again, we're trying to be a resource to people, a positive resource. Kevin and I, with all the things to talk about in this world, especially all the bad things, we decided early on that we would try to make this a positive place. Occasionally I take it in different directions, but Kevin,
It's real
he's going to be
life.
consistent.
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
be up
yeah,
all the time. You got to bring
yeah,
some
yeah.
reality into it.
Exactly. And
That's me
so
too.
we're definitely gonna keep it real. We're very transparent in the things we talk about. It's not rehearsed or anything like that. So we appreciate anybody that stops by just to watch us, talk to us, participate. We don't take it for granted at all.
No, we don't take your time and attention for granted. We definitely appreciate what you invest in us, and hopefully the return that you get is something worthwhile. Like you said, we just try to make this a place that where we facilitate some good, wholesome, decent, positive, optimistic, aspirational, inspirational conversation that maybe you can get a nugget or two. Because I'm grabbing all the nuggets I can get from you all. I am not embarrassed to say that.
For
So,
sure.
yep. So I think it's all we got, Leif. Two
Yep.
shot guys on the mic. Thanks for joining us. We definitely appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next round.
Let's see you in the funny papers. All right, people. Later.